Hey guys, RJ here, and I am on episode 2 of 13 Reasons Why. I gotta say, this show has me absolutely hooked. I need to keep watching it. I wouldn't be surprised if I finish it by Monday night. This show's amazing. As I always do with my reviews, if you have not seen episode 2 of 13 Reasons Why on Netflix, please turn this review off, go watch it on Netflix, come back here, and then we can talk about it. I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. With that out of the way, episode 2 was an amazing experience for me. I really like the fact that we move on to a girl off of a boy here. Jessica becomes one of Hannah's best friends. Her counselor basically forces these two together because they're both new to school, and they have a really funny bit in the office with what I would consider probably the happiest person I've ever seen in their school counselor, and it's really funny the way that they play off one another. I really enjoyed that scene, and so yeah, they end up becoming what they call hot chocolate friends, and I really don't think that means best friends because as we learned throughout this episode, there were a lot of things these two kept from each other. So while they're at the coffee shop after school one day, they actually run into this new character named Alex, and they go over and talk to him together, like originally as a joke, and then they kind of end up bringing them into their friend group, and all three of them end up starting to meet at this coffee shop after school every day, and they have hot chocolate, or Alex has his million different drinks as he works his way through the menu. But yeah, so these three end up becoming closer, they meet every day, and then eventually something weird happens, and people stop coming to the meetings. Of course, the weird thing that happens is that Jessica and Alex kind of start dating behind Hannah's back, and I do think it's like super weird why they didn't just come out and tell her. I mean, we all went through this in high school. You know, you have a three group friend, and then eventually two of the friends fall in love, or you know, they start talking to each other, and then it ends up ruining the friend group when they end up breaking up. And yeah, I mean, this is a very lifelike, realistic show so far, and I really enjoy that aspect. I went through a ton of these issues in high school they're presenting in this show, and I absolutely love it. Alex and Jessica dating ends up leading to what I would consider one of the most cringe-worthy moments in this show so far, and that's Hannah's there working at the theater, and then Alex and Jessica end up coming up for a movie. They didn't think Hannah worked on Wednesdays, so they thought they could kind of get away with it without being caught, which I think is just kind of a really reckless move to even try and go to your friend's place of work when you're trying to hide this relationship. And yeah, I mean, Hannah ends up, not letting Alex go in free, but lets Jessica go in free, and just kind of to spite them. And in general, I thought this was a really awkward scene. I loved it because of how awkward it was, but it was certainly awkward. And I mean, we've all kind of had that moment in high school when you see your two old friends and they're still together and you've been excluded. And of course, that exclusion is what ends up leading to the very powerful scene that Hannah and Jessica end up having at the coffee shop later down the road, because Jessica says, grabs Hannah by the arm and says, we need to talk when they're at school. And so they meet up to do and try and have their hot chocolate friends, but instead it's more like hot burning lava, because this scene turns into a fireworks show. Basically, Hannah ends up getting slapped directly in the face by Jessica. Jessica storms off, and clearly Jessica, even though Hannah and Jessica never really talked about what happened between Hannah and Justin, and with the picture and being sent around school, I think Jessica clearly believes that what happened with Hannah was the truth, because she ends up calling her a slut, and she seems really pissed off. And it's about some list that Alex and Hannah supposedly made together, when in actuality Hannah's telling us that it was only Alex that made the list. And of course, our main character, Clay, is ridiculously confused about all of this. And I think it's kind of weird, because he has feelings for Hannah, but he didn't really know that much about her. And I mean, I know that that's easy for me to say, but just in general, you would think she would know a little bit more about her friend group or something, because they do seem to hang out, a decent amount at school or at work or whatever. You would think he would know a little bit more, but he's very perplexed as to what's happening in these, as he's going along through these tapes, all 13 of them. He's only on the second one, and he's already ridiculously confused. So I'm not sure if this is intentional on Hannah's part to confuse Clay, but just the looks on his face is like, what is happening around me? There is this shitstorm of stuff happening, and I have no control. I gotta say, Tony is by far one of my favorite characters in this show so far, and we end up learning what I would consider one of the most important things so far in this show, and that is that Tony, at least in all appearances, happens to be the one that is facilitating this entire tape process where he is going from person to person, delivering these tapes, making sure they listen through absolutely everything. I don't know exactly if he helped start this whole project with her or how all of that is intermingled, because he tells Clay, like, no, I didn't know she was going to commit suicide. I didn't know any of that stuff. And I'm really curious as to how the whole plan with that worked out. So I really do want to see where that goes in the future. But I love Tony. He calls Clay on his bullshit a few times in this episode. And I think a few people actually call Clay on bullshit a few times in this episode. And I want to hint at one other thing, and that is there is a weird flashback that we get between what looks like Clay and Hannah and maybe them doing stuff. I need to know more about this. Is this leading into future episodes? Is this why she ends up including him in these tapes? Or is this just some sort of fantasy that Clay is having, or some sort of like flashback that never happened? I am curious about that tiny little scene. As I said in my last episode review, acting-wise, this show is phenomenal. It is ridiculously on point in general. I don't know if it's the director's job that, they ended up basically pulling the best out of every actor and actress they have, but dear Lord, man, these lines are read cleanly. They're very thorough. The social anxiety on Clay's face and the other actor and actresses, it's fantastic. I mean, this is a very serious subject, and the way that characters would act around something like this happening in your real life, I think that they're kind of nailing all of that stuff so far. And I gotta say, one of my favorite scenes with that kind of premise is the Hannah and Clay scene outside of the movie theater, where you can tell that Hannah has a lot of anxiety about the Alex and Jessica thing, and she kind of sits down with Clay while they're dicking around for a minute, and then she asks a serious question like, do you think Jessica, pretty much saying, do you think Jessica's prettier than I am? And Clay, like an absolute idiot, and the rest of guys on the planet, he ends up not giving her a straight answer of like, yeah, like you are hotter than her, which is what he should have said clearly, but he ends up instead saying like, you're special, and she doesn't like really let him explain. But I love that whole scene, the way it was set up, the way she exits. It's all just really masterfully done. This all leads us to what I would consider an amazing end scene for episode 2, which we have Clay, riding his bike down the street, and then all of a sudden he sees Tony pull out in his car really fast and drives by. So Clay decides to follow him, and then he ends up leading him to Hannah's house, where Tony gets out of his car, goes and hugs hugs Hannah's mom, and it's a really emotional scene, and they have a great soundtrack following it, a Run Boy Run track running. It fits everything perfectly because Clay is running away from his problems instead of facing them, and when he finally sees that, that the mom and Tony know each other, I think it kind of hits him in a place that he didn't realize was there. And yeah, in general, there's a lot of emotion built up in that final scene, and I really like the way that they kind of worked it out. Speaking of that final scene with the mom in it, Kate Walsh has done a great job so far. She hasn't had that many lines, but as far as an emotional actress goes, she's like the prototypical mom actress in Hollywood, in my opinion. I've seen her in too much stuff like Private Practice and whatnot, but yeah, she's done a great job so far, and I just kind of wanted to hint at that as well. So episode 2, I so far have really enjoyed this series. Episode 2 has only gotten me more locked in, which I'm really happy about, because sometimes you have a great episode 1 hook and then episode 2 is really low, but this kind of keeps the action going, and I'm hoping that this is just the way it's going to feel throughout the show. I love the way the miniseries is set up. I think it gives you a good balance of being able to provide depth, but also trying to move a series along quickly. I really love the tone and feel of miniseries. I think Netflix has a really good formula for making these work. So in general, I've just really enjoyed this show so far. The soundtrack, the visuals, the script writing, there's nothing for me to complain about. That brings me to my finale, guys. I am really happy my girlfriend recommended that I watch this show. So far, I am completely entranced. This is definitely going to be a hit show on Netflix. I'm almost positive of it. And let me know your theories down below. Let me know your thoughts on the show. Do you guys like it as much as I do? Do you have any theories moving forward? And book readers, no spoilers. You will be blocked pretty much instantly. But let me know your thoughts down below on the series so far for you guys. And I'll keep these reviews coming out over the next couple of days as I watch the show, take notes, and shoot the reviews. So stay tuned for more. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. All of our social media links are down in the video description as well, so you can follow us there. And until next time, guys, we'll see you soon.